And before we start any webinar or any presentation at Royal Roads, we always like to acknowledge that we live, learn, and work on the traditional lands of the Kosepsum and the Lekwungen ancestors and families who've lived here for thousands of years. So we're really grateful to be able to do the work that we're able to do here, even if we're all working from home. I'd like us all to take a moment to appreciate the lands that we are on today. So today we are going to be hearing from some of our wonderful graduates from the Bachelor of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies program. My name is Shelley Jones and I'm an education advisor at the university, and I'm joined today by Dr. Shelley Jones, who is the program head for the program.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Perfect. And we'll be speaking to Tanya and Kara a little bit further onto this session today, making sure, perfect. See Tanya in the chat box already there. So I will continue on through our agenda. So I'm going to be taking us through a very brief overview of the Royal Roads University experience. If you aren't too familiar with us, we're actually going to be hearing from our alumni panel right after that. And then we'll take you through a little bit of the program at a glance. If you were looking for some more logistical information, but I will say that this webinar is going to be a lot more focused on our alumni today. So if you are looking for more detailed information about the program, you're always welcome to follow up with us via email after the webinar, and we can also send you a recording to a previous webinar where we dig into all those details a little bit further. But today is going to be all about hearing about the experiences from our alumni. So if you aren't too familiar with Royal Roads, here's a little snapshot of our campus. Many of us have been working from home for over a year now, but we do have a beautiful campus that we hope to return to at some point soon. So the top left-hand corner there, you'll see Hatley Castle. That's the center focal point of our campus. It was built in the early 1900s and is still used today in normal times as a working building to host events, student classes, as well as film projects, and rented out for various things. So there's a big hub of activity at the castle. On the top right-hand corner, you will see our Japanese gardens. That is one example of the many beautiful gardens that you can experience around the campus, pretty close to the castle there, actually. We also have Italian gardens. We have a croquet lawn. We have rose gardens. So lots of beautiful manicured gardens for you to explore. And then we're also right on the ocean. So the bottom left-hand corner is the Esquimalt Lagoon. You can also see it a little bit behind the castle in that photo there. So if you love wildlife, it's a great place to go and see some birds or other ocean critters and things like that. So a wonderful place for you to go and take a walk and stroll. And then on the bottom right-hand corner, we have just a little ode to the fact that we've been doing online learning for over 25 years at Royal Roads University. And it's a real integral part to who we are and how we've been operating since our inception as a university. And we're also an Ashoka U Changemaker campus. So this is a designation that a select number of institutions have received, and we're very proud of it. It means that the type of education we provide is very interdisciplinary, it's very solutions oriented, it's very entrepreneurial. And it's a testament to what we're going to be talking about in this conversation today about how we infuse this interdisciplinary process, thought process, courses, everything like that into all of our programs at Royal Roads, but especially this one, as far as allowing you to really customize according to what your interests are and how you want to direct your own education. So with that, I'm actually going to drop my slides now, and I'm going to make sure that we can all see everyone properly here. And we will begin our conversation with our alumni here. So I see Tanya here. Tanya, I'm wondering if you can test out your mic there. Just hit the unmute button. There we go.
We're good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So
no problem.
With that, Tanya, I'm wondering if you want to start us off by introducing yourself and maybe digging in a little bit more to your background and what brought you to the decision to take the BAIS program.
So my name is Tania Greune and I live in Quesnel, British Columbia. So that's about 8.5 hours drive north of Vancouver. kind of the geographic center. So as you can imagine, I am not close to a lot. I'm a 250-kilometer round trip to UNBC, which is where I did the first part of my degree. And so we're a little ways away from everything here. And so what I had done is, and I'm also, you know, almost 50, have a job, have a family, and I'm not in that life stage where you want to move away to a dormitory and do things. You know, I was looking for a full experience with university and university cohorts that I could be part of and still be at home. So anyway, living up here online is a wonderful, wonderful option. It just kind of opens up the learning world for so many of us. You know, it's much different than when you're living in a really urban center. So I really, really like that. And I've spent most of my life managing nonprofits. So I'm going to try and tone it down a little bit here because my husband's on a Zoom call in the other room. So I've spent most of my life managing nonprofits, first in the health sector and now in the sports sector. And now I'm just in between. I'm finishing off a bit of schooling. But you know, in mostly a business degree, what I found was that I wasn't satisfied with only being an accounts payroll person, like the idea of that, you know, in a big corporation. So, you know, taking my experience working with nonprofits and then schooling in business, finishing off with the BAIS program absolutely enriched my learning. And it enhanced how I can use my business and nonprofit knowledge because it has opened up the focus a little bit. You know, when you're working in management, you're looking at a zoomed in picture, and in the interdisciplinary studies, we just brought more in, you know, kind of some international information, innovation, mixed teams. There's just so many things that I hadn't really thought about it. The idea of these interdisciplinary teams and the more creative problem solving that they can bring to any business is huge. It has huge value.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'm just scrolling. I think we'll continue on. I know we're going to have Kara join us today, but I don't know if she's been able to get into the room yet. So with that, Tanya, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a little bit of a background on what brought you into the program. And I know specifically you touched on a little bit of what you studied in and how it related to your career. But do you want to dig in a little bit more into the types of courses you took to kind of make up the slate of the program that you took?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I came from having almost all my courses in a commerce degree from UNBC, and then finishing off my last 11 courses through Royal Roads. And so what I did is I took the core interdisciplinary course, which is, I have to say, it was my favorite course, because it just brought so many other things into it for me that for my learning and my excitement about learning, that one was the most stimulating. Did, of course, the Indigenous course, which I had done some up here as well, but you know, that's very relevant, especially for us. We're living in an area where we have, you know, 4 different First Nations that kind of have our community as a hub for. And I see that in our programs and that as well. So that was very good. So definitely a lot of the interdisciplinary, the kind of innovative teamwork management programs. So while they were still a business, they had a totally different slant to them. And they brought other pieces in. So they brought in a lot more about the culture of business and work in different countries, different places. And so I just thought that was very, very good. Writing, you know, one thing I had really noticed and wasn't too happy about was that there was a real dearth of writing in a commerce program. in the first 3.5 years, I didn't have to write one essay. So I felt as a learner that was a skill I was really missing, being able to write a good research paper or something. So we did a lot of that in the BAIS program, and, doing other things now, my confidence, I can write a good research paper now. And Royal Roads walked me through all the work it took to get there. But I didn't write one essay the first 3 years in a strictly commerce program. So that's, in real life, that is a huge deficit, right? I do a lot of grant writing. I do a lot of things like that. And so your written communication skills are just so important, and how you present to everybody. But the biggest piece also that was an absolute enriching to my learning was our teams on each course. So as an interdisciplinary student, we get popped into the different teams in the business cohorts, so this course, I'm part of team 5, and they're a pretty cohesive group. And then a few of us get slotted in there. And in the next course, I'm part of, team 3. And I thought, at first that's a little intimidating, but I was parts of groups with these mature learners who were doing really interesting things in their lives, right? We were all working, and, one lady who was in 2 of my other groups was a writer for the Deepak Chopra Foundation. Her forum posts were beautiful, absolute things of beauty. There was a lady who had gone to the Olympics for cross-country skiing, which is what I manage in town here. And there were just the enrichment of my fellow learners, and with more mature students who have more life experience, was just really one of the biggest pluses for me in the program. There was one course where we didn't do that. We didn't have to do any teamwork. And I really felt like it was 2-dimensional compared to the other courses. So I just have to say that was absolutely, and it's very stimulating. We know when you're in that team right away and you have things to do together, it really keeps you on track, because now you're accountable to somebody other than yourself. You're accountable to the rest of your team. And I just felt that it really kept us on track, getting the work done and doing it to, having good quality work that we were putting out, because, there's 4 other people who are doing pieces of this. So yeah, very, very good. That was a real positive and something that was pleasantly surprising. I was a bit worried about online learning being somewhat solitary and isolated. And I've done a little bit of distance learning before, and I found that was the case. And I did not find that was the case at all.
And thanks, Tanya. This is really great to hear about your experience and on so many levels. And I've actually quite a lot of questions. But when you talked about the team, working with the teams, is that something that you think is directly applicable to your real life and your real work?
Oh, it really is. It really is. If you can't do this well in school, you're going to be in big trouble. Because especially now, even more is online, but everywhere I've worked, you're part of a team. For most of my work life, I answer to a board, to an executive director. I answer to community stakeholders. I have to meet with them. I have to work with, and direct kind of teams that are different than me, as in they're maybe a different generation, or they are union and I'm exempt, and you have to get good at this, right? And even with online with Royal Roads, there's that short period of time where you're forming a team. Everybody's getting to figure out who we are and what our strengths are. So we choose the pieces of the project that play to our strengths. And then you get to work. And it's kind of compressed into a tighter timeline when we're doing this in Royal Roads, like in a course, you're having to do this quickly. You're forming, storming, norming, boom, 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 boom. Where, and in work, sometimes you have months to try and really figure people out and see what the dynamics are. but the concept is the same, right? And it's a skill, and you better believe you need to think about how to work in there, like what people's communication. Some people are very defensive, some people, yeah.
And it's because a lot of the programs at RRU, most of them actually, you begin with a cohort and you move through the program in that same cohort. Whereas in the BAIS and the MAIS programs, the interdisciplinary programs, you are in and out of different cohorts because you are not taking like a set program in business or a set program in justice studies. You are mixing and matching, in a sense, your courses to tailor your own program. And so then you're almost, so you're being challenged every time, right? That you're joining
Absolutely.
a new team in a different area even sometimes.
Yeah, and my thought on that, because when I decided to do the BAIS and not finish off with the business program through RRU, I kind of thought to myself, I'm gonna miss, like, I would have liked to be part of a cohort to move through. And what I found is at the end of the BIS, I was very thankful that I'd had a chance to be parts of teams with a lot of different people, because there were just some very interesting folks, and they brought good things to the table and experiences that I would never have learned about if I hadn't had a chance to be parts of teams with many different people.
Yeah, I think that's, and some people, I think some people love that and some people find it challenging, but I think it's beneficial all around, because you do, as you say, are mixing with different kinds of people in different kinds of areas, right? So there's a wide
it is challenging. There's no mistake about that, but worthwhile.
And then I was also reflecting back on your initial comments around the courses. So just maybe we can have a little program information here. Is that the first 3 required courses of the BAIS program are the Introduction to Interdisciplinary Studies, the writing across disciplines, and the Indigenous perspectives, global perspectives on Indigenous ways of knowing. And I was interested to hear that you thought that those were really relevant courses and important courses for you. You thought the interdisciplinary course, did it in a way set you up for the rest of the completion of your program?
You know what? It absolutely did, because it had to get me thinking outside of the commerce box, that I'd been in. And it kind of set the tone for, I'm not just finishing a business degree now, I'm doing something a bit different. And it was stimulating in that for myself, I was looking for other learning. I'm not just doing this for a job, I'm doing this for my own sense of just wanting to learn different things and loving the stimulation of it. So having those core courses, especially the Introduction to Interdisciplinary, you get introduced to so many different things in that one course. And, she's referring you to books like The Medici Effect and to different TED Talks, and you're just bringing a lot of different threads into it that then once you kind of have those, as I followed through the courses, I could kind of keep following them out to just be a bit more creative in my coursework, right? And for me, that's really good, because I'm a very linear thinker, it's like all the pictures on the wall have to be even across the top. There's no, so I have to make real efforts to think creatively, because that does not come natural. So I really appreciated that part of it, because I think it grew my thinking a little bit.
That's great. I mean, it's good to hear, because that's the intent, is to expose this kind of a broader way of thinking about things from different multiple perspectives. And did Kara join us, by the way, Christy?
I haven't seen her name in there yet. Yeah.
All right, so I have a couple of other questions for Tanya, if you don't mind.
I don't mind, no.
When you took a number of courses then in the area of business and what did you go into any other areas like leadership or
There was a leadership course. I'm trying to remember what my coursework was now, because it does kind of blend, but there was some leadership, some, strategy courses.
Right. Okay.
Communication,
right? And
yeah.
so then when you came to the final professional focus courses, so the independent study, right, the direct study, and the final papers. So that's a bit unique in terms of an undergraduate program as well, these professional focus courses. How did you find that those were useful for you in terms of focusing your program and getting what you wanted, like being able to somehow synthesize all of the courses and produce something that made sense to you in the end that you could sort of take with you?
It did, because I knew that was coming. As I was going through the courses, I kind of kept a separate reading list of things that were working for me with my thoughts of what I might want to do for that research paper. So, there was this kind of side thought happening, and it was always a case of, if I'm going to put the amount of hours and effort into a research paper, it better have something to do with my work. Something that I can actually apply all that accumulated knowledge to. So what I did was I did my research paper on volunteer motivation in the younger generation. There's been a lot of, HR has always been applied to for-profit business and employees, and now it's being applied to volunteer management. But what we are seeing on the ground in real life is a big difference between our older volunteers, or our baby boomers, or anything, how they communicate, how they want to volunteer, what they do, and our younger ones. And there's a disconnect between boards who are mostly older trying to recruit younger volunteers, and it's not working for a lot of grassroots organizations, right? It's a hard shift, because the two just communicate and want different things. And so that was what my paper was on, was that generation of 19 to 32 volunteer motivation and that. And so it absolutely, I was able to take parts, because I kind of realized I was going to do something around that towards the end. And I just, as I went through the courses, I would just pull little bits out and have that separate list kind of for later. And then I was able to do that research study. Matt kind of helped connect me to an excellent supervisor, because it wasn't your common type of, subject, and take that and apply it, write the paper, but have something that I'm applying in my work life and my volunteer life.
That's fantastic. And that's the point, really. It's interesting when you said that's not your common type of topic, because I guess one of the things about BAIS is there is no common topic, right?
No.
Everyone is got a different focus, and very unique, and which I think is one of the advantages, because you really can, as you said, right, keep notes all through your program that can really lead you to your final paper and your final immersion into something that you can really sink your teeth into, and also take with you at the end, and hopefully that will contribute to your career. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Tanya. I'm going to turn it back over to Christy now, because I know Tanya probably has other questions. I've been kind of monopolizing here.
No, that was great. And I will just say, if there's any questions from the audience too, definitely feel free to pop them into the chat box for Tanya or Shelley to answer. And then we can address those there too. And we also have a few other amazing folks on the call to help answer questions as well. We have our program advisor, Willem, and we also have Rhonda White from our enrollment team. And I believe we have Carol on the call as well from the College of Interdisciplinary Studies. I see a question in here from Selena. How do you articulate what your degree is to others? When someone says BA and business admin or something like that, the conversation sort of stops there. How do you share what BAIS is about to employers, to friends, etc.? It's a great question.
That is so difficult. I'm assuming in 10 years that's going to be less difficult, right? Because this is definitely gaining momentum. But, you know, I just explained that the interdisciplinary studies, usually it ends there and people don't ask anymore. Okay. And they kind of pretend they know, you know, so usually that's kind of where it ends. But people who know me better and are comfortable asking, then I just kind of give them a whole, like, for me, it was based kind of on business, and I was able to expand it, you know, into some other things. But I think it's less, you know, it's less strange to people than it even was a couple of years ago. So I just kind of say interdisciplinary studies with a focus in business for me, or, you know, is kind of my short answer to people.
Right. And we do actually now, this is fairly recent, but you can have a declaration within. So a Bachelor of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies with a focus in these areas, like so of communication and environmental studies. So you can actually request to have something on your transcript, which will make it like a more focused couple of areas as well. But but you're right, Tanya, for sure. I mean, interdisciplinary studies is a growing area so quickly now, because I think increasingly people everywhere in all different kinds of professions are realizing that the interdisciplinary approach is absolutely necessary to be grappling with a lot of the issues that we're currently dealing with in business, social issues, social justice issues, climate issues. It's taking a real multiple perspectives, right, to be really looking at how we work now, I think, in the 21st century. So I was looking at Selena's comment, and I think in 10 years time and maybe even hopefully a lot less, you won't really need to explain much anymore. I think, but as Tanya said, you probably want to draw attention to the focus or two, right, within that area. But I think the idea of interdisciplinarity is definitely growing.
Yeah, totally. And I hope it,
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
I find, you know, on the ground in the real world, you know, when you're looking at hiring and people look at a degree, that's one thing, but really what people need to know is, what can you do? What do you understand? You know, how are you going to fit into my company culture? And that's more than just the degree. You know, I think we're at a point where people want more well-rounded humans who can fit into a culture of a company and work with lots of different people. You know, there's not too many jobs where you're just, this is what you're doing for the next 20 years, or you're doing accounts payable for, like, you know, it's different. Work life is changing.
Yeah, it's sort of, what are you able and what are you willing to learn as part of your job now? I think that's becoming a soft skill that's being recognized as significant.
Knowledge society, right? So we expect to need to keep learning.
Yeah, and great point, Carol, in the chat box about how interdisciplinary studies gives you more tools in your toolbox. And yeah, like you said, just makes you really well-rounded for wherever you want to go in your career. Willem, I saw you had your hand up too.
Yeah, I did. Hi, Tanya. Nice
Hello.
to meet you. We've never met.
It's nice to meet you too.
I know your name really well, how it looks on the paper, but you have never came to campus, right? You never came to campus, so we have some residencies.
Actually, but we did last summer. We just walked up and took a picture in front of it.
That's too bad I missed you there. But so it's nice to meet you. So to continue on the question that Selena had, so what was the impact of having a BA? Because that's what this is about, right? It's a bachelor in the social science area, bachelor of interdisciplinary studies. What impact did it have on your career? Is there any specific impact of that, or can you say a little bit more about that?
You know, I'm already doing something I love. So it gives me more skills to do it better. Things are changing for nonprofits. We've seen a lot of change in the last 15 years. But this also gives me the opportunity then to teach eventually. So what I've done now is I've popped into the provincial instructor's diploma program. And I thought I'll kind of pick that up and see, then maybe pop back in for a master's at RU, right, or something. But But what I thought is I'd like to not only like work in nonprofit, I'd like to be able to teach, because what I've run into up here living in the North is that, you know, often in my earlier years when I was going to take a course, it would be canceled because there was no instructor available. And most instructors are coming out of community, like they're not professors. They're people who are working in that field and then instruct. So we still see a lot of that. You know, we're a resource community and we have a little, like a campus for UNBC and CNC, but you know, I'd like to be able to kind of share some of this.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for asking that question, Willem. And I'm just seeing in the chat box if we have any other questions. If you do think of anything, feel free to ask Tanya. And since I don't see any now, Shelley, do you have any final burning questions for Tanya that have popped up?
I don't think so. I mean, it was so interesting to hear, right, about your experience and also how it's been directly applicable to your work. And it's also prompted further studies. I mean, I guess that's the danger, right, of getting into the BAIS program. Is it never stops. You just want to keep learning. So, I mean, I think that's fabulous. And I have a lot of questions, but I think that for the purposes of this webinar, it's I think for now I'm done. But thank you so much. I really appreciated all of your thoughts and learning about your program and experience.
Yeah, and if I oh, sorry, Tanya, you go ahead first.
There was a lot of support through Royal Roads to keep going, like Willem and Matt and that. You know, I had a job change and a home change. I sold my house and it did a lot. And so I also felt often that I wasn't just floating, like it's that there were a couple people out there who were connecting. How are you doing? I needed to change one of my courses, like the dates on them when I started. So definitely, you know, if people are worried about online learning and not feeling connected, that wasn't an issue for me, because that was a worry at first, thinking, can you do this if you're not feeling like you're accountable or connected? And that was not an issue at all. So, you know, I appreciate how often the RU advisors and that would kind of, you know, jump in and just check how things were going.
I think that's one of the, you know, it's a fairly small program, and we do have a really dedicated and committed group of people that try and support you as best we can, because we know that sometimes the idea of online learning and we have students from all over the country, even in different places of the world, and it's, as you said, there's, you know, a lot of online learning or directed studies can be quite isolating. So we're trying to make that not the case and be in touch with you, and also understand that, you know, as adults, and often adults with families and jobs and everything, life happens, and so we do appreciate that and try and work with you closely to adjust and accommodate changes. And so I'm really happy to hear that was a positive experience for you. I'm just looking in the chat box. Selena has such a great question here. I don't know if you can see it, Tanya, and if you, okay, it says, can I read it to you?
Yes, please.
It says, how did you get the courage to pursue such a future forward type of program? The BAIS program for me is really the perfect option, but it's scary to jump into something that isn't the norm in higher education.
You know, part of it was thinking about where I wanted to be in 5 years. Now, doing this program, which whatever I was going to do was going to take a lot of money and a lot of effort. So was I going to pigeonhole myself into something that was maybe a good job or something that was, you know, people would understand, or I was going to put the same amount of money and the same amount of effort into something that would give me more opportunity to just pursue things that could ignite a little passion. And I have been very lucky to work in places where I could be passionate about what I did, working with great boards and things that matter. But so this is the thing, is this, it's the investment of money and time is the same, but do you pigeonhole yourself into one area, or do you kind of stimulate the possibilities? And, a committed, reliable person is going to find work and have good work. That's, I'm almost 50, and that is one thing I'm really sure of now. Like if you are passionate about what you're doing and you do it well, you will always have work and you'll have work you love.
Thank you. And do you think too, I think that one of the aspects of the program and the professional focus part, I think can take you, if you have a burning interest in something, you can really put your effort into that, right? It's 9 credits, which is the equivalent of 3 courses that you're devoting specifically to what you personally are interested in learning about. So I think that can really help to help you gain knowledge and some serious grounding in a particular area that will help you move forward.
When you're on those teams, it's inspiring to find out what some of those people are doing for jobs. You're like, whoa, I didn't realize that was a thing. And, it does open your head up to the possibilities.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can attest to that too, actually. I didn't take this program, but just taking another program at Royal Roads, just what you learn from your own classmates is like worth the money just on its own, because they're just such fascinating people. Carol, I see your hand is up, so I'm just gonna, if you want to unmute there.
Okay, there I am. Yes, thank you, Christy, and thank you so much, Tanya. My comment to you is I just want to thank you so much for actually talking about and addressing the teams, because yes, our learning and teaching model at Royal Roads University, it's inevitable throughout any of our programs. There's going to be some teamwork, and I'm one of those people who have negative thoughts about teamwork, and I'm one of those people who go, oh, teamwork, oh, and so I really, really want to thank you. And I love your comments about the teamwork, because it is so much more positive, and it actually really pointed out more so the benefits than the negative side of it, right? There's so much more benefits, and teamwork. I can't think of one job that doesn't involve, teamwork in some respects. So the value of it, and you really expressed that so well. And yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a final question, if I may, because this is where what I help students with come in, right? So how did you actually come about taking all the courses that you did? Because you can select all the courses that you want, right? The ones that we offer that are part of the BAIS program. So how did you go about that process? I know the answer, but it might be good to know from you. Just to hear how you do
so
that.
There's the core courses, and then there was background that I had in business. And then what I was looking at is, what will I be doing in 5 years with this knowledge? Like, what will and where are my gaps? I kind of had to look and see, like, where are the gaps for me? And I tried to fill that in, maintaining kind of the same somewhat stream of, leadership, say business management, communication, and filled in some gaps on the writing and the communication. So I kind of chose for that. I tried not to choose any courses that were a real strength for me, because what would be the point, right? And filled in on the areas that were weakest for what I'd had access to in other courses. So that's kind of where I looked at that, and the fact that they all had to be all online for me.
Yeah.
Any courses from other institutions?
Sorry?
When you did the BAIS program, did you take courses at any other institutions and transfer them in?
Before, yeah, I transferred in courses before I did the BAIS program.
Okay, because also during the BAIS program, and just so people that are aware of this, you can transfer in up to 12 credits from other institutions. So if RRU doesn't have the courses maybe that you're looking for in a particular area, with the approval of the program head, you can take courses from other accredited institutions and transfer those in to help build up a knowledge base if we don't have the courses that you're looking for. Just to let people know that.
Thank you, Shelley. The BAIS program is a social science-based program, so we have a few institutions who work at the basket, for example. They have courses from psychology, so that's definitely a great option. Yeah, thank you, Shelley. Would you like to speak a little bit more about the program structure itself now, Christy, or what's your plan?
Yeah, just looking at the time here, I will follow up with just one final question for you, Tanya. You've been an amazing resource for all of us here today. Thank you for taking so many of our questions. But as a final question, just what advice would you give to, any final words of advice that you would give to somebody who's considering taking this program?
You know, when you take the program, you can kind of take the minimum amount away from it or the maximum amount away from it, right? So, you know, I'll just, as an example, think of the one of the first core courses, the Introduction to Interdisciplinary Studies. And I'd have to say, you know, it is rich. So if you actually try and experience more of the resources that the instructor is giving you to watch, to read, to listen to, it's really going to improve your feeling for what you're doing. It was just, you know, there was just a lot of interesting articles, interesting TED Talks. And, you know, you can, like in any course, you can get by with kind of getting the minimum amount of information and spitting it back out. Or you can just take more of it and kind of let it percolate into a nice little stew, you know, and have that. And so that would be my best advice, is actually, you know, take the time to kind of ingest the information and really enjoy the teamwork. I mean, not every team is going to be superb, right? You know, I've had one that was a crazy one, but that's life. So, but really kind of enjoy that part of it. And I have to say, one thing I found was it really had me upgrading my tech skills again. It's very easy to fall behind, but every group we had, one of them we communicated on Hangout, one of them we communicated this way. We'd all decide at first. You know, you just have to be open to learning a little bit of new programs each time. It's whatever works for your group.
Yeah, those are some really, really great points. So thank you so much again, Tanya, for sharing so much amazing information with us. We're going to carry on to the program information, but again, it was so wonderful to have you on here. And if you do have to head off, we understand, but if anybody has any final questions in the chat, then we can keep helping address those as we continue out the presentation today. So thank you.
I'll stay a few more minutes.
Perfect, amazing. So I'm just going to share my screen and then we're going to touch on some highlights of the program structure itself. Alrighty, so Shelley, if you want to take it away on a little bit more about the program.
Okay, great. Again, thank you so much, Tanya. Really appreciate it, your time today. So who is BAIS for? Well, I think probably Tanya's given you a pretty good overview. It's really for anyone who has a wide range or has an interest in developing in a particular area. Our programs at Royal Roads and the undergraduate level are mostly in the areas of communication studies, justice studies, business, and environmental practice and science. So those are the sort of kind of fundamental areas that we offer programs in. However, as I said before, you can transfer in up to 3 courses from other institutions as well if we maybe don't have something that is you're looking for, or you would like to get more in knowledge in a particular area. But I mean, again, as Tanya said, it's for students who are looking for how these different areas intersect, right? So how communication and business and leadership might all inform each other, how they contribute to various issues, how you'll be able to take what you've learned and apply that to your own career or professional life. And there's also, an element of being able to delve deeper, I think, in terms of aligning what you're learning to your particular career, as well as research interests. There are some research opportunities. There's also some opportunities to do internships, which I'll talk about in a second. And it's a flexible model, so you can be you can be at home, you can have a work from your location, maybe you have a family, maybe you have a full-time job, all of these different things. You can take up to 5 years to complete it, so you've got flexibility in terms of how many courses you take at a time. So it's someone looking for all of those kinds of things in an undergraduate program. It is a program completion, so you would come in at the 3rd year level. And it's very personalized. So you're not taking a set, other than the 3 initial courses, which are required and prerequisites courses, the Introduction to Interdisciplinary Studies, the Writing Across Disciplines, and the Global Perspectives on Indigenous Ways of Knowing. Those are the 3 required courses for the BAIS program. But other than those 3, and the final professional focus, which you decide upon, the rest you are looking at different program areas that really serve you in terms of what your focus area is. You can do it completely online. Of course, that's what everyone is doing right now in the pandemic. When things open up, which seems like they're going to be opening up soon, hopefully in September for on-campus, you can also do on-campus residencies or on-campus courses if you happen to be in Victoria. A lot of the BAIS students in the past have, before COVID, actually come to campus and done 1 or 2, or at least 1 residency where they're on campus for an intensive course. So we've talked about the program structure a little bit prior to now, where we have the 3 mandatory courses taken at the beginning. Following that, we have 42 credits at the 3rd and 4th year level. And again, you're choosing your courses here to pull together your own personal program. And then at the end, you've got 9 credits, which is your professional focus. And both of those, now what I personally love about this is that you're working one-on-one with a supervisor in these courses. So, excuse me, the INDS 417, which is the independent study course, you're working one-on-one with a supervisor in finding readings and writing preliminary papers around a topic that's of specific interest to you. And Tanya talked about her interest in, it was it the sort of tensions between the older volunteers and younger volunteers, but Tanya had a very specific topic that she was interested in learning more about and researching, and just as all of the BAIS students do. And that is a 3-credit course. Again, you're working one-on-one with your supervisor. Then you move into your final paper or project, typically working with the same supervisor, although not necessarily in some cases. And you delve deeper into that same focus area. So it really is an intensive exploration of a topic that's of interest and importance to you. And then that's your 60 credits.
Wonderful. And with that, thank you, Shelley. We're going to switch gears a little bit. And Willem, you're going to pull up the website, right? So I'll stop sharing my screen here. And Willem is going to take us through our program guide that we have on the website and explore that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. And so what Shelley mentioned, really the strength of the program is you work towards that paper, and with that paper, or research of 9 credits, at the undergraduate level, you can work as being a graduate student on your topic. And topics we've seen so far, Shelley, there are quite diverse, from food security to human resource topics to almost an anthropological culture research of a company, could be around communication. So when you create your own program of study, right? So there's 42 credits. What you do is you keep in mind your end goal and think, hey, what would I want to achieve in the end? What's what I'm going for? Well, if you don't, it's not a really big problem, because the first 2 courses will help you define some of that. And the flexibility is in the sense that the courses are not flexible. The courses that you take online are all very structured, but the flexibility is you can decide to change some of them. So let's say you go into justice studies and you decide that you want more business in that, then you can change that. So when we start, let's say you would apply, and we'll have a look at the schedule, right? We draft it from scratch. There is no other like yours, literally. You start with the first 2 program-wide courses, and then the third one is the INDS 400, right? The Indigenous Ways of Knowing. And after that, you can decide what you want to take. And for example, you have a residency courses, and this is what Shelley also referred to. You can take 1 residency, for example, 1 in professional communication, and then you have a few courses that are offered together, and there's an on-campus component to those. Right now, that's a little different, but normally there is. And the other one would be the justice studies. See, and this is much smaller. There's 2 courses here, but then that's an option, right? You don't have to. You can complete the entire program online, and then if you would want to do that online courses only, then you'll go to this section here, online courses, and Rhonda, you will put in the chat box the links to the BAIS program guide here. But for example, Tanya mentioned the business and management courses, right? And you'll see a few of them here. And then you make basically a list of courses that are most interesting to you. And if you don't bring any courses in prior to the program, or you don't decide to take any during the program, you have a choice of 14 courses to choose. And you literally go down these lists and say, well, I would like to have a course around advertising, or I'm interested in crisis communication or sustainability. And then you go over the environment and you say, I would like to have something around for example, public policy formulation, because I'll be working in provincial government in the future as my plan. So I'd like to know how public policy is formulated, and pair that with an additional writing course, for example, and top it up with an ethics course. And then after that, you can go, for example, to the interdisciplinary studies, what we offer, and you have a special course, for example, the INDS 325 LGBTQ2+ global engagement course is in there. So this is how you do that. You basically have the framework of the program, and you add first a residency if you would like that, which is an on-campus component to it. They have 2 weeks usually, and then you fill the rest out with online courses. And that's how you get to the 60 credits as a whole. Yeah, I hope that is helpful. It makes it real, because now you can see how you can create your own university of you, I would say.
Thank you so much, Willem. That was fantastic. A really thorough walkthrough of what this whole process looks like. And I'm sure everybody else found that helpful. But again, if you have any follow-up questions, just let us know. And I'm going to share my screen just for some final resources that will be handy to you. So bear with me here. So some key dates, if you are interested in applying for the program, the application deadline is coming up pretty soon for the September start date. So if you are interested in starting on September 13th, 2021, the application deadline is June 13th, 2021. So it's always good to get the process started, and we can follow up with more information on all the application details that you will need to get that process going. And then as well, we've been mentioning all throughout the presentation today, if you do have any questions, to reach out to us. And here is some of the contact info for our wonderful enrollment team. Rhonda is a lovely example of one of that team who has been helping us out here in the chat box. So you're welcome to reach out directly to her. I believe she popped her information in there for a direct contact too. Or you're welcome to reach out to anybody on our enrollment team. If you're applying as a Canadian student, you would use the top contact there, and then the bottom contact is for international students. And Just a note, if you are applying as an international student, the lead time with the application is quite a bit longer as well. So definitely begin to look into that process too, as there's can be some components with visas and things like that. But just, if you have any questions around that, our teams are here to help support in what that could look like. And with that, I will do a final call for any last questions that we have here as we close out the session. And check the chat box here. So Rhonda has put her contact information if you do want to reach out. And to go back to one question that was popped in the chat box, just for anybody who's watching the recording later on and doesn't have access to read through the chat box, Selena had asked how long you have to complete the program. Is it just the 2 years or can it be longer? And Shelley replied in there that you do have 5 years to complete the program if you do want to space it out. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Selena. So I don't see any other questions popped into the chat box. So at this point, we will let you all go on your way, but I want to thank everybody who helped out with today's session. So thank you again to Tanya, who had to leave. And then of course, Shelley, Willem, Carol from our College of Interdisciplinary Studies, for helping out behind the scenes. It takes a village to put on these webinars, and we really do hope you found it helpful and feel supported in whichever way your educational journey will take you from here. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Christy. Take care.